today. This weekend, Conor McGregor, the notorious Conor McGregor, makes his return to mixed martial arts in the octagon against Max Holloway at UFC 329 in the main event at 170 pounds. And we've heard this story before. We've seen this play out multiple times. But we still gotta ask, who wins and what's going to happen? All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we are here Fight Week UFC 329. Conor McGregor makes his return against Max Holloway in the main event. 5-round fight, 170 pounds. What say you? You know what I'm saying? What say you? Where are we gonna go with this McGregor-Holloway fight, right? We've all seen all of the breakdowns. We've seen all of the videos. We know the history of the man being Conor McGregor. We've seen everything. We know the history between him and Max Holloway and what happened in their first fight. You know, so early in their careers. I believe that was like Conor's second fight in the UFC. You know, couldn't have been, more than his third. And here's my take on this. I truly believe that Conor McGregor's two best gifts in in the entirety of his career, his two gifts. One of them he still has, the other one he no longer has. And none of these are fighting abilities. None of these are a special technique. None of these are a special style, a form of striking, an accuracy that the opponent doesn't have, a strength that the opponent doesn't have. None of that. His two gifts, truly setting him apart from every other fighter in the UFC, and only one of them he possesses, was number one, his aura, his presence, his ability to engulf the situation with himself. When you look at the rise and fall of Conor McGregor, this is very, very key. Earlier in his career, he had an entire country, an entire nation. You know what I'm saying? This was the Irish hero that was behind him, and it fueled him. So the UFC, they had the famous card in Dublin. They had the card in Boston. You know what I'm saying? And Conor was just the dude in those situations. The way he would speak, the way he carried himself, the way he handled the interviews, the press conferences, the face-to-face, the quick wit, just being ready for it, right? That was such an intangible skill that he possessed. We've spoken about it so many times. It's the reason why Jose Aldo lost. When we were watching this build-up to Conor and Jose Aldo, yeah, Conor was huge then. He had all the fans, he had everything, but those who've been watching Jose Aldo since WEC were like, what are y'all talking about? He's not getting ready to beat the King of Rio. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what are y'all talking about? But that aura, that presence, you're watching him. It's almost like it was a campaign trail to an election. You're watching the whole worldwide tour that him and Aldo did to promote that fight. You know what I'm saying? Before Aldo got hurt and Chad Mendes entered into the equation, you're watching all of this, And you're like, man, this dude, this dude got some presence. Like, it's like, man, but Aldo's gonna get him. And had it been skill for skill, blow for blow, I truly believe Jose Aldo would have gotten him. But that wasn't what happened, right? And then the same thing replayed itself. Same exact thing against Eddie Alvarez. Those of us who are veteran fans of the sport, man, we talking about the underground king, Eddie Alvarez. Like, we talking about the dude that went out there and put it on Dos Anjos when Dos Anjos was that dude. This is what we talking about. Like, you guys to understand, in that fight, you're like, okay, we finally gonna see it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah, he went out there and beat Aldo. Fine. Okay, fine. But we finally gonna see this dude go out there, and we finally going to see him meet up with a dog in the center of the octagon, and he's about to get his just due. He's about to get his comeuppance. And then he goes out there, that when you're watching that press conference build up to his fight with Eddie Alvarez in Madison Square Gardens, and he's coming out there with the white fur coat on, you know what I'm saying? And he comes out there with the white fur coat to mimic famous boxing press conferences. You know what I'm saying? To mimic legends of the sport. You could tell this guy was thinking on another level. And you could tell this entire moment engulfed Eddie Alvarez. Swallowed him up, bro. There was nothing he could do about it. So then that night in Madison Square Gardens, we saw the very first and the crowning, and the term was coined by him. We saw the first champ as he goes out there and he waxes Eddie Alvarez and becomes a 2-division champion. The presence, that aura, right? So then he embarks on a world tour to face Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Money Mayweather. Now, I remember when this fight was first made. This fight was first created. And me and everybody that I knew, that knew boxing, that knew fighting, that knew a little bit of mixed martial arts, that was aware of boxing, right? That's very particular in this. We knew Mayweather was going to have his way with Conor McGregor. Now, if you were an MMA fan and you didn't really know a lot about boxing, and you believe the hype and the tabloids and the what Floyd carried with his name, at that point in time, you were really thinking Conor was getting ready to go out there and win that fight, right? But as I spoke about in some of my previous videos to this one, when you were watching that tour to hype up that fight where they were touching multiple nations, multiple coasts, all you need to do, and I've already said in the previous video, you need to YouTube, you need to Google the press conference between Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor in Canada, right? We ain't worry about the one in New York where he was, you know, that was, you know, Floyd's out there throwing terms like, you know, telling his security form Voltron. And you're like, what is up with this dude? Like, who was saying that, right? And then Conor's out there looking crazy. Looked like he was doing stand-up comedy on the stage, and he's walking around, he's really trying to get at Floyd, and Floyd ain't having it, and you know, it was just weird. But the one in Canada, that press conference in Canada for Floyd versus Conor, to me, outside of the moment with Jeremy Stevens at a press conference, the world tour build up for Aldo versus McGregor, this press conference in Canada was the epitome to me of the Conor McGregor aura and what it creates. He whipped those Canadian fans into a frenzy, right? This was a frenzy. The way that McGregor had these Canadian fans eating out of the palm of his hand, it was as if Drake was a 3-division world championship fighter and he came out there to hype up a fight. That was the frenzy that he had these Canadian fans in. This was unheard of. This was unseen. Like, you're watching this press conference and you began to believe Conor McGregor was going to go out there, not only defeat Floyd Mayweather, but knock him out. But then as history moves forward, as histories, right? You're seeing him signing his fight against Khabib. And you know what's going to happen. The same way that if you had a brain, you knew what was going to happen in the Mayweather fight. And it was eventually what we saw. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, McGregor had like a moment, but it was eventually what we saw. And then we see the you know, they signed the Khabib fight. And you see the press conference before the Khabib fight. And Conor's doing shots of whiskey on stage to hype up Proper 12. Right? And it ain't even good whiskey. So that was just a bad look for Conor. Because at least if you're going to be doing shots fight week, it needs to be some profound liqueur. You know what I'm saying? It needs to be some profound bourbon, some profound whiskey. You know what I'm saying? You might as well been out there sipping a bottle of E&J when you're drinking this Proper 12. Because it ain't good whiskey. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is you're watching this and the aura wasn't the same. When you were watching this, the aura was in the favor of Khabib. Because when you're watching this, you're watching Conor play a character, right? You're watching McGregor play a character. You're watching McGregor try to drum up this aura, trying to manufacture it, trying to create it. Where in previous years, in previous fights, he just automatically had that. And you saw the aura Khabib was giving off. Because Khabib Nurmagomedov wasn't going to be detoured, wasn't going to be phased. Because this was, yeah, it was about the championship and bringing that home to his father, right? Rest in peace to Khabib's father. But it was also, it was more of a, there was a lot of pride centered in this. You're talking about Conor who had said things about this man's lineage, his country, you know, his nation, his father, his training, his religious beliefs, so on and so forth. This was about pride. This was about drawing a line in the sand and saying, okay, throw the belt on the ground, throw the undefeated record on the ground, right? Let's throw it all out the window. When it comes down to it, man versus man, in mano a mano, cojones versus cojones, what are you gonna do when you're locked in a cage with me? And that's what we saw play out. If you didn't see it in real time when it originally happened, what you need to do is you need to once again Google or YouTube when Khabib Nurmagomedov had Conor McGregor on the ground and was slapping him, not punching him, was slapping him, followed by punches, and telling him, talk shit now. Psh, talk shit now. You know what I'm saying? Go back and check that, and you'll see what I'm talking about the aura and the presence, only it wasn't in McGregor's favor, it was in Khabib's favor. So I know this is a long, drawn out, roundabout way to say this, but that intangible. So we see him, you know, we see Conor McGregor come back against Cowboy Cerrone. Now, Cowboy was known to freeze up in the big fights. right? The big, huge fights when all the chips were down, all the cards were on the table. You know, we're going to let it ride on this one hand of poker. Are you going to take it, or is the house going to take it? It was guaranteed for Cowboy Cerrone the house was going to take it, because he could not win that big one. So when you talk about that aura, right? I'm not going to say it was back in the McGregor versus Cowboy fight, but it was the closest we've seen it being back since his loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's the closest we've ever seen it be intact. The aura for McGregor, right? That was the closest we've seen it be intact. But like I said, one could argue it might have only have looked that way because you got a Cowboy Cerrone who was destined to always lose the big one. So I've gone through this whole explanation of this one attribute that Conor no longer has, and that is the aura, in which I believe that is what allowed him to go in there and do so much damage against so many opponents in so many divisions. What is the one skill that he still possesses? Because he no longer has that aura. You know, you've seen this man lose in the octagon too many times. You've seen him go in there and get embarrassed by Dustin Poirier twice, including the last time he left on a stretcher because he snapped his leg in half. You know what I'm saying? We've seen this fall from grace on the ground. You know, saying, you know, explicit things, X-rated things to Dustin Poirier's wife while he's on the ground, just lost the fight, leg snapped in half, Joe Rogan sitting beside him on the octagon floor. We've seen all this. We've seen him take loss after loss in the courtroom. We've seen him take loss after loss being arrested, and had videos come out making him look crazy, and you know, all of his, you know, ever since I've created this channel, his name on the Matter of Fact MMA channel has been the King of Snow, Conor McGregor. And we all know this dude is not out here shoveling snow, weather related. You know what I'm saying? The snow that melts in the sunlight. No, we talking about the snow where you come alive in the sunlight. That's what Conor McGregor is the king of. Right? But the intangible skill that he still possesses, it's not a fighting ability, it's no longer the aura, but he has the ability to speak in a way where you truly believe what he's saying. And some of the greatest in mixed martial arts, some of the greatest in all combat sports possess that, right? If you're old enough, if you were around, if you paid attention, if you know when I say this name, late 90s Mike Tyson had this ability. Late 90s Mike Tyson had the ability, when you knew, and I'm a Mike Tyson fan, but when you knew, man, Mike's best days are past him, and he's going in there with just that you know, that MF and row of just unalivers. That was Lennox Lewis, that was Evander Holyfield, you know what I'm saying? Twice Evander Holyfield. One ended in an ear bite, you know what I'm saying? Bro, you're like, man, Mike's best days are definitely behind him. But what he still possessed was that ability on the microphone to talk that talk and make you believe that he was back and he still had the abilities that he had in yesteryear. You know, you watched the famous interview, I believe this was before he was about to face Lennox Lewis, right? This is after he had just won in the ring, and he was about to go on to, I believe the next fight was going to be the Lennox Lewis fight. And the way Mike was talking about, I'm from Sonny Liston, I'm from their era, I'm cut from their cloth, I'm heartless. I mean, when he went off on that tangent of, I want to eat your heart, I want your children, and he just went off on the mic. It's a famous interview, you need to Google that one. And Mike Tyson is going off, and he's just like, I'm cut from their era, from Sonny Liston's era, I'm cut from their cloth, I'm a conqueror. And he just goes off, bro, and he finishes with, you know, he's talking about he wanted to eat the men's children, and then he ends it with, all praise be Allah. When that happened, you had to been there to see that interview, to see that post-fight speech. When that happened, you was like, oh my God, Mike is back. Mike is back. It's about to go down. That's what McGregor still possesses. When he's on, not these little interviews with per se with Ariel Helwani. He had a few moments in that, but when you see him really get deranged, but not a manufactured deranged like he was trying to do against Khabib, but when you see this man go snap and go to that other place, and you see shades of that McGregor that was on the come up at 145 when he was slender, abs, no stomach tattoo, you know what I'm saying, just the chest tattoo. When you saw that, man, that version of Conor was unbeatable. You know what I'm saying? Bro, when you see him lock in and get to talking that talk like that, that is that man's true skill, his true ability that he still possesses now. You look at his training footage, he doesn't move like the old Conor. He doesn't have that fluidity. He doesn't have that calmness. You know, he's not loose like that famous video where he's doing all this with his shoulders and all that in the Mayweather build-up. He doesn't have that. The famous quote from Nate Diaz about him playing touch butt in the park. Back when he used to go to the park and he had the little weird looking dude with the ponytail who was doing all of the movements and yoga or whatever they was doing in the park. All of that is gone, right? I'm sure McGregor still has the power. I'm not sure if he has the accuracy that he had earlier in his career to put that power on display, right? He's never quite had that stamina, you know. Probably his best stamina fight we've ever seen him in is in the second fight against Nate Diaz, where he really had to gut it out and go all the way to the end for a decision. But the skill and the ability that he still has is the speech. To be able to make you believe that he's going to pull it off. And let's get right to the point. Let's get right to it. Man, you know, I'm saying that after babbling on for like 15 minutes here, if not more. Bro, he no longer has that aura. And Max Holloway is not a fighter that would be affected, I believe, by that aura. If Conor had never fallen off and Prime Conor stepped in there with this version of Max Holloway, Max is still not going to be fazed by the aura. I believe that when Conor beat him the first time, it really was based out of a skill set that Conor possessed that at that time Max didn't quite possess yet. But now he's got that 10 times, tenfold. We're talking about a dude that hasn't been in the octagon for 5 years now, and when he left on a broken leg. It snapped in half. We're talking about a guy coming back from a career-ending injury that most men don't return the same from. You know what I'm saying? Anderson was never quite Anderson again after that leg break. And poor Chris Weidman, he kept trying, but I mean, come on. You know what I'm saying? On top of that, he's stepping in there with a fighter in Max Holloway who is not going to be rattled by the moment. I mean, we're talking about a dude that's fought Alexander Volkanovski 3 times and lost all 3. You know what I'm saying? And I know he lost all of those, but you have to understand the mindset to not be rattled and to go in each time like, I'm going to pull this off. And then go on to have some of your better moments of your career after losing to one man 3 times in a row. To go on to pull off what he did against the Korean Zombie. To pull off one of the greatest knockouts of MMA history against Justin Gaethje, who is now a champion. To be able to pull off the things that Max Holloway has pulled off. Okay, so he's coming off a devastating, embarrassing loss against Charles Oliveira, where Charles Oliveira used a particular skill set in which Max Holloway had nothing for. But he's right back in there. He's right back in there. He's fully hydrated. He's big at 170 pounds. And granted, that could play something in Conor's favor because Conor's been trying and touting, trying to fight at that position here for a while. He was trying to fight, he was trying to fight, what's your boy's name? Michael Chandler at 185 pounds for a little while. You know what I'm saying? So there is something to be said about that size, but I think he's walking in there with a fighter that's coming off of a devastating loss where he was, he had more offense in his Volkanovski fights than he did in this fight against Charles Oliveira. And let's be real, the only difference between if Max facing Charles Oliveira and Conor facing Charles Oliveira is Charles would have subbed Conor in round 1 or 2. Let's just be real, okay? I know this is a long drawn out video for the same conclusion that everybody is arriving at. Max Holloway goes out there and he defeats Conor McGregor. But what I will add, a little caveat that I will add, the little extra I will throw on there is when you look at this, man. Big 2026, when we look at it, man. We didn't give Justin Gaethje that benefit of the doubt, that chance against Ilia Topuria. And Ilia Topuria is no longer the lightweight champion of the world. We did not give Sean Strickland that chance against Khamzat Chimaev. And Khamzat Chimaev is no longer the middleweight champion of the world. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of weird things at play here. A lot of weird things happening. Right? So would I be shocked if Conor McGregor somehow goes out there, and we all know the only way he's going to beat Max, he's going to have to catch him and knock him out. Would I be shocked if that happened? Any other point in mixed martial arts history, I would be. But in 2026 and the latter part of 2025, we're seeing things a lot different. I mean, Joe Pyfer just went out there and knocked out Israel Adesanya. You know what I'm saying? I mean, dude, we're seeing a lot of strange things. But the reality is that even though Adesanya comes out here in these fights and he tries to talk a good game, and all of those Adesanya fans, which I never was, they all try to get all behind him. Even he talks a great game. Like he's, dotted all his I's and crossed all his T's, and then we see the results. But would I be shocked? Would I be shocked in 2026 if McGregor is actually able to go out there and pull it off? Not from a timing standpoint, not in 2026. At this point, when Khamzat took an L to Sean Strickland and You know, Ilya took a L to Justin Gaethje. Not trying to say either one of those guys are bad fighters, but it's just not what we saw based out of both of these fighters' skill sets. Man, it would not be shocking. Max Bless Holloway should be going out there and blessing Conor McGregor Saturday night and should emerge victorious. And I don't know what he does at that point, because at that point he would have just got a win over a fighter that hasn't been in the octagon for 5 years. Biggest fighter by name in the sport. But still, and it's at 170 pounds. This is a weight class that Max definitely ain't going to stay at and doesn't fight at. But that's what should happen. And I ain't gonna lie to you, would a part of me be extremely happy, and I'm not a Conor fan, but would a part of me be extremely happy if McGregor went out there and got it done? Of course. Of course, because everybody would be. Ariel, all MMA Guru, everybody on MMA YouTube, everybody on ESPN, everybody on Skynet, everybody on whoever, Barstool, BN, I don't know, all of them, everybody would be happy, bro, if he goes out there and gets this win, because MMA is back. You know what I'm saying? But the reality of it is, if you're gonna bet your money, bet it on the bestest blessed Max Holloway. It goes down this Saturday, UFC 329, main event. The return of Conor McGregor. I got Max Holloway to go out there and get the win, much like everybody else. But I just wanted to kind of bring up these points. You let me know where you stand. You know, please like, subscribe, comment, please, guys. It really helps the channel, as I'm sure you already know. Everybody panders to that. But it'll really help out your boy, so please do that. I got another video coming. We're going to break down the other fights on UFC 329, because it's a sneaky good card. Sneaky good. Most of the time, Conor cards, or recent Conor cards, are terrible because the UFC's just banking on Conor at the top. But this one's got Robert Whittaker on the prelims. So it's definitely something to check out. Please like, subscribe, comment. I got another video coming after this where we're going to be breaking down the rest of the card. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time.